Hey everyone, this is Heather with the Potomac Bead Company. Today I'm going to show you how to create our new bracelet called the Blooming Flower Bracelet. This bracelet consists of some SuperDuos and some O beads. And you will need some 11O seed beads for a toggle or a clasp or for whichever way, and that's what we're going to do today. But this bracelet is pretty different. It almost represents, or it's very similar to our Floral Fusion bracelet in the fact that we will be creating each flower blossom in a single pattern and then connecting it with one SuperDuo, and I'm going to show you how to do that. For the bracelet that I have here, I've actually used turquoise SuperDuos, and I did use the Rosaline O beads, and I'm going to use that for our bracelet today. For the SuperDuos that I'm going to use today, I'm going to use a light violet matte. You'll need about 8 grams of your SuperDuos and maybe 6 grams of your O beads. You'll also need a toggle and a clasp of some sort. For the bracelet that I have here, I actually just used a different type of glass bead I found in a collection of mine, and I just used my clasp over here, or the toggle portion. I used some O beads. For the bracelet we're going to do today, I'm actually going to use our new cup buttons, and I picked the violet one to match our violet SuperDuo. You will need a size 10 or 12 beading needle and some beading thread. I'm using Wildfire 0.006 inch, and the color that I chose today will be white. So once you've strung your thread on your needle and you've got all the beads that you need and picked out the colors that you want to do this bracelet, I'm going to show you how to get started. Okay, so I've cut about 10 inches of white thread here, and I've attached it to my needle. And what we're going to do, actually, I'm going to show you, for this part, I'm going to show you how to do this complete flower blossom, as well as how to add on a toggle. And this will show you the basis of how to do the toggle, the flower blossom. So right now I'm going to pick up 4 SuperDuos and put it onto my needle. And I'm going to drop that down, leaving a couple of inches of thread. Oops, I only have 3. Must not be counting right. So 4 SuperDuos. And what I want to do is complete a circle. So I'm going to take my needle back up through the same hole of all 4 SuperDuos. And holding your thread, your tail piece, in place so that nothing's kind of slipping and sliding, just pull. And I want to complete my circle, and to do that I'm going to take my needle back up through that first SuperDuo, and I'm going to pull. So it's given it that circle effect right there. Now at this point, what I'm going to do is pick up an O bead, and I'm going to take my needle through the next SuperDuo, that bottom hole of that next SuperDuo. Holding my tail out of the way, I'm going to pick up another O bead and take my needle through the bottom hole of the next SuperDuo. Pick up an O bead and take your needle through the bottom hole of the next SuperDuo. And you're going to do it one more time to complete your round here. Pick up an O bead and take your needle through the bottom hole of that next SuperDuo. Now at this point I've completed my round, I've completed the circle, and my thread's coming out of that bottom hole, and what I want to do is, kind of like in the circular peyote, I'm going to take a step up, take my needle through that O bead. I'm going to pick up a SuperDuo, and oops, I'm getting it all tangled, and I'm going to take my needle through the I'm actually going to take my needle through the top hole of the next SuperDuo. Pick up a SuperDuo and take my needle through the O bead. Pick up a SuperDuo and take it through the top hole of the next SuperDuo. As you can see, what we're trying to do is have a SuperDuo for in between each O bead. So an O bead is going to be sandwiched in between a SuperDuo. So I'm picking up a SuperDuo. Let's see if I can get a little bit more light here. And then take my needle through the O bead. Just like that. and pick up a SuperDuo and take it through the top hole of the next SuperDuo. Pick up a SuperDuo and take your needle through the O bead. If you guys can see that okay. Let's see if I could focus in on, there you go. Pick up a SuperDuo and then take your needle through the top hole of the next SuperDuo. So I can sandwich in my O bead in between my SuperDuos. Pick up a SuperDuo. Now that we've almost completed our round here, I'm going to take my needle through that last O bead, just like that, as well as I'm actually going to take my needle through the next 3 SuperDuos because I'd like to start my next round where my O beads are. At this point, I'm going to pick up 2 O beads and I'm going to take my needle through all 3 SuperDuos, which is the bottom hole of that first SuperDuo, the top hole of the second SuperDuo, and the bottom hole of that third SuperDuo. They should all align together. Now I'm going to pick up 2 O beads. I'm going to do the same thing. Take my needle through all 3 SuperDuos. Pick up 2 O beads and take my needle through all 3 SuperDuos. Just like that. Pick up 2 O beads and then take my needle through all 3 SuperDuos. Now that we're at the beginning of the round, because I know that because our thread and needle is coming to where those two O beads are, I'm going to pick up an O bead and I'm going to take my needle through those 2 O beads. I'm going to pick up another O bead, take it through the top hole of that next SuperDuo. With this sequence, what I want to do with those 2 O beads is I want to sandwich O beads in between the other outer O beads. So instead of a SuperDuo, this time we're actually doing O beads. Now that my needle's coming out of that top hole of my SuperDuo, and there's a space right here for a SuperDuo, what I'm going to do is add a SuperDuo. So I'm picking up a SuperDuo, I'm taking my needle through the top hole of the next SuperDuo. Now I'm going to pick up an O bead and take my needle through the next 2 O beads. Pick up an O bead and take my needle through the top hole of the next SuperDuo. Now that I'm in the space where I need a SuperDuo, I'm going to pick up a SuperDuo and take my needle through the top hole only of the next SuperDuo. Pick up an O bead, take my needle through 2 O beads. Pick up an O bead and take my needle through the top hole of the next SuperDuo. Pick up a SuperDuo and take my needle through the top hole of that SuperDuo. Pick up an O bead and take my needle through the next 2 O beads. Pick up an O bead and take my needle through the top hole of the SuperDuo. Pick up a SuperDuo and take my needle through the top hole of the SuperDuo. We have completed our round, and I know that because now I have 4 O beads sitting on my top layer. And this is pretty much what our flower blossom should look like. So we've now completed the very first one, but what I'm going to show you here, I'm going to show you how to add a clasp to it, or the toggle actually. So I'm going to take my needle through my O beads here, and I'm going to take it through only 2 SuperDuos. And then I'm going to take my needle up through that top hole of that one SuperDuo kind of sticking out. This is where I'm going to grab my cut button, and I'm going to add an 11-0, an O bead, 11-0, an O bead, a couple of 11-0s. Well, actually, just one 11-0, another O bead, because I really like the O beads, and 2 11-0s. So on your needle should be an 11-0, an O bead, an 11-0, an O bead, 11-0, an O bead, and 2 O beads. I'm going to drop them down. Take my needle through one hole of my cup. Sorry, they look like the piggy buttons of my cup button. I'm going to pick up 4 11-0s, drop them down, and then at this point I'm going to take my needle down the second hole of my cup button. And what I'm going to do at this point is actually take my needle down through all of my 11-0 and my O bead sequence. Take them all the way down and then pull. And at this point I've successfully added my toggle. And so what I'm going to do is take my needle I'm going to take my needle to the other side of that SuperDuo, and I'm going to pull. And then I'm going to bring my needle down that same SuperDuo. I'm going to take it down the bottom hole of the same SuperDuo, so that is how you add your toggle to one of the flower blossoms. At this point, I'm going to probably reinforce my project just through a couple more SuperDuos and O's, do a couple of half-hitch notches, tie off my project, tie off my threads, and cut them down, and super glue your knots if you want to. And don't worry about the feeling of those O beads kind of jutting out. That's actually what gives it dimension to this flower blossom. And now what I'd like you to do is actually create another flower blossom until you get to the very end of the last row, or the last outer row. And I'm just going to show you how to attach that the SuperDuo on. Okay, go ahead and complete one more. Okay, so I've almost completed this last flower blossom. So I'm halfway through the last row of my blossom, which is I've added an O bead, gone through 2 O beads, added an O bead, and now I'm going to add a SuperDuo. Add a SuperDuo, take it through that top hole of the SuperDuo. Now I'm adding an O bead, taking my needle through 2 O beads and adding one more O bead, taking my needle through that top hole of my SuperDuo. At this point, what I want to do is I want to add another SuperDuo, but I don't want to add a SuperDuo. So I actually want to use this SuperDuo from the last flower blossom and to conjoin it. So this is what it's going to look like. It's just going to conjoin it like that. So in order to do that, I'm going to take my needle through that SuperDuo, and then I'm also going to take my needle through the SuperDuo on the flower blossom I'm working on. And I'm going to pull so that they can join up nicely. And then I'm just going to kind of thread through my needle and just kind of thread through the project. Oops. Maybe. If I don't get it hooked up on anything. So that I can have a little bit more tension at the connection. And then here is where you've pretty much just completed adding on your link. And then here you're gonna tie off your project by adding some half hitch notches, glue your little knots if you need to, and then you're actually ready to begin another link and do the same thing that we just did to link onto the SuperDuo. And that's pretty much how you're going to complete this project. It's very simple. It's kind of a little time consuming because you've got to, cut your thread and add little links. This can also be, instead of doing bracelets, you can also do earrings, use these little flower blossom as earrings, and instead of adding a cut button, you can actually do what we did for our sequence here for 11O and O bead and 11O O beads, and then just add an ear wire to it, and then they can make little pretty earrings as one singular event. And you can also do this as a necklace. This could be part of a dangle and then add on to a necklace if you'd like. So multiple options to do with our flower blossoms. You're going to keep adding your links until you've reached your desired length. And once you've gotten to the other side and you want to add your clasp portion, you can use all O beads like I did here, or alternate it like I did here for the toggle. 11O and O beads, and you're pretty much going to do the same thing as far as presentation wise for what we did here for the toggle. So pretty simple, pretty easy. So if hope you'll probably have to rewind this video a couple of times to catch the drift of your basic flower blossom, but it's pretty easy. So I hope you guys pick out great colors and get ready for spring with these flower blossom charms and links that we have, and enjoy making this bracelet. And if you have any questions, please post them. We'll try our best to answer them. Thanks for watching this video. Check us out on Facebook.com and our website, PotomacBead.com. We also have other YouTube tutorials if you'd like to watch, and I hope you enjoyed watching today. Thanks a lot.